The morning my life fractured along its hidden lines began with the hiss of the old kettle in the break room and the distant clatter of printers spitting out other people's work. Our new manager, Mr. Joubert, always hovered at the mouth of the corridor around 8:45, watching us file in one by one like a sentry on his last day of basic training, nervous, overzealous, always too eager to remind us that we were lucky to be there. I arrived 2 minutes late, rainwater shivering on my jacket's shoulders. My old desk lamp, rescued from my mother's junk pile, flickered against grey cubicle walls the colour of dirty laundry. I was halfway through answering last Friday's emails when Joubert summoned me, his message a single blinking line on my screen: "In my office. Now." He closed the door gently after me, smiled grimly. "Sifo," he said, "let's speak plainly. Your work lately reports barely adequate. That wild thing with the employee spotlight videos." He rolled his eyes, "the one you pitched about taxi drivers and street musicians. Is that how you see your future here, chasing fantasies with a camera?" The humiliation was sharp and clinical, almost pleasant in its purity. I looked past him through the slatted blinds to the wet car park beyond, my reflection faint. He waited for me to plead, to promise improvement. Instead, I just stood, my hands twisted into fists in my pockets. He misread my silence as contrition. "Sifo, this office runs on discipline. You're a bright fellow, but you need to learn your place. Forget documentary films. Forget that vision stuff. That's for people in London or New York, not for clerks in Johannesburg." He handed back the list of story ideas I'd left on his desk last week, crumpled, stained with coffee ring marks. By the time I returned to my cubicle, my idea notebook and camera were already the butt of an office group chat I could almost hear through the cheap partition walls. The safety net of belonging that office jobs offer had shriveled to string. What I didn't know then, hunched beneath flickering light, was that the rupture of that morning would never quite heal, not entirely. I walked home through the untidy city drizzle, the golden dust scent of the minibus taxis mixing with the sharp tin spice of wet pavement. My mother was waiting at our narrow stoop in Hillbrow, her hands on her hips. "You're late again. You need to keep that job, your sister has fees due." I nodded, doing my best to mask the rawness in my throat. At dinner, my brother Douglas, always the sharper-tongued and more practical, dropped his fork with a clatter. "You still dreaming movie dreams, Sifo? When will you grow up, Mealy? You're not some white boy with a trust fund." The words strung, I escaped upstairs, into the attic room I shared with the family's creaky appliances and forgotten luggage. There, behind a curtain of mothballs, I opened my battered camera, checking the settings by feel. I shot 2 minutes of my own face in the mirror, voice sour with self-loathing. "Maybe I am ridiculous," I said quietly, "but I can't stop." In the weeks that followed, the sense of humiliation settled hard at my core. Joubert shifted me to answering customer complaints, a kind of corporate penance, his smirk unspoken but obvious. I was dying by inches, stifled but not yet smothered. One afternoon, thunder cracked over downtown. In the stale hush, an old-school friend, Zainal, called. She was working as a fixer for a small foreign film crew, tracking down stories about inner-city music. "Sifo, I saw your short online, the minibus taxi one. The Belgians want to meet you. Do you want in?" I stared at the blinking LED on my battered phone, heart hammering. I had not dared show anyone but Zainal my short. Still, the offer seemed like a trick of weather. Yet, what would be worse, the same grey years ahead, or the shock of falling and discovering perhaps I belonged elsewhere? That evening I quit the office by email, methodical in my wording. Joubert replied, brief and bored, "Best of luck. Maybe one day we'll see your name in the credits, Sifo." My mother wept, my brother called it selfish. The neighbours on wind-laced evenings gossiped that I had thrown my future away on a white people's game. In some ways I believed them. But what else could I do? The next months were a patchwork of poverty and beginning. I slept on spare sofas, sometimes in Zainal's cold flat behind the supermarket, sometimes on cardboard pallets at bus stations if she had a guest. I learned the language of shooting fast with borrowed gear, ducking the attention of twitchy security guards. Sometimes, after 7 hours chasing a story in Newtown or Soweto, we'd get footage worth a single, shivering minute of usable film, the city's wounds and laughter compressed into a tiny, burning sliver. There were days when hope was only an ember. I carried a growing guilt seeing my mother packing food into boxes for my siblings before I left at dawn. Even my old school friends, Musa Teboho, began to answer my texts with hesitation, as if the sickness of failure might be contagious. Yet sometimes, shooting in the midnight glow of Alex under the bridges, I found a kind of peace. The camera brought things close and made sense of chaos, even the hardest stories, mothers selling vetkoek beneath highway overpasses, fathers teaching sons to repair radios in cracked shacks, glowed with strange, defiant beauty. These were my neighbors, they became my city, and I at last saw a place for myself, not as a clerk but as a witness. 2 years passed, I chased stories from sharp sunrises to trembling dusk. Hunger tailed me like a faithful mutt, and the sense of loss, of family distance growing, of birthdays missed and laughter becoming memory, tugged at my heart. But the work built me up in its own way, teaching me endurance, forging something in the heat. The first break came almost by accident, my short on minibus conductors, a rush of movement, petty hustles, singing in the smoky dusk, found its way to a festival in Cape Town. I watched a row of strangers watching my city on a wall-sized screen. When the applause landed, a kind of fragile joy pushed back, for a while, the dark tide of doubt. A BBC producer approached me with card and handshake. "These are the stories we're not seeing. Maury, please." He was brisk but kind, and for the first time I felt blood running warm through ambitions I'd assumed were numb. Contracts came. Work, real work, new neighbors with gentle, knowing eyes. Storytellers who had also once slept leaning against shopping malls or squatted at festival after-parties, shoes sticky with spilled beer, wallets empty. Still, it was not quite enough to write home about. Or perhaps it was that I did not yet want to risk hope, but then the phone call. I was in Lesotho shooting a story on border jumpers when the call came, a Southern Cross Award nomination, then a win for a piece about lost fathers and the gold mines underneath Joburg's cracked skin. Zainal screamed and bought a shimmering bottle of cheap wine. I dialed home. My mother gave a soft, wounded gasp. "You, an award on TV." There was a tremor in her voice, a mixture of wonder and something close to sorrow. It wasn't until the South African Broadcasting Corporation invited me to premiere my feature Dust and Drumbeat, My City, My People, at the Market Theatre in Newtown, that I realized the arc of my life had curved back home. They asked if I'd like to host a Q&A, invite my family, maybe some old colleagues. Under the stage lights, nothing could be hidden. The days leading to the screening passed in patches of panic and elation. I sent formal invitations, one to Joubert's office marked urgent, to my brother at his job in Germiston, to my mother. None replied, but somehow I knew they would come. The old Market Theatre filled with restless energy, the crowd diverse, students with notepads, businesswomen, men from Soweto in crisp Sunday shirts, even a local ANC councillor. I stood at the back, sweating in a borrowed jacket, unable to force my heartbeat to slow. I scanned the crowd, a familiar head here, a tilt of a chin there. Zainal grinned at me, squeezing my hand. Then my mother appeared, gaunt but proud, her dress too formal. Beside her, Douglas, arms folded, his brow set in concentration. Joubert lingered close to the door, self-consciously glancing at his watch, but there. The old office crew clustered behind him, voices awkward and quiet. The neighbors from Hillbrow entered as a group, their laughter suddenly stilled in the hush of the modern auditorium. Lights out, the film began. My voice, awkward but sure, introduced the story, then faded beneath the city's soundtrack. Taxis, late-night drums, the thrum of hope and hustle. The scenes flowed, a gold miner washing tired hands beneath a broken tap. A widow counting coins with her child, street musicians in Yeovil grinning past broken teeth. I shot it all, sometimes with my hands shaking, always praying that in showing our vulnerabilities, I might also show our strength. As the credits rolled, silence fell, then applause, a rolling, rising thing that gathered all the threads of loss and reconstruction I had lived. In front, my mother sat still, tears on her cheeks. Douglas stared rigid, then covered his mouth. Behind them, Joubert's face was pale. I stepped to the front, knees weak. The hall became blurry and sharp at once, a million scattered shards of the past glittering under the lights. Zainal was beside me, guiding me forward. The Q&A began. A young man raised his hand. "Did you ever consider giving up SIFO?" I looked into the faces before me, the skeptics, the doubters, the people who had called my dream embarrassing, those who'd whispered over neighborly fences that I'd be nothing but another hopeful with empty hands. I remembered the way their words had sliced. I remembered the night's hunger and loneliness had seemed too heavy. "Yes," I said quietly, "I wanted to give up many times, but the city never let me. This place, these stories, pulled me back every time I tried to run. I lost a lot, but I found myself out there, broken but whole." Someone asked about the challenges. I described being chased by security at Carlton Centre, being shaken down by police for permits I couldn't afford. I spoke of sleeping rough, of not knowing when the next job would appear. But every struggle is a brick, I said. Every refusal shaped me. Afterwards, the audience drifted towards the foyer. My mother hugged me fierce as ever, but her pride burned away the doubts she'd carried. "You came back to us," she whispered, voice trembling. "Hole." Douglas was silent for a while, then he clapped my back, awkward. "You did it, Sifo, not like we thought you would, but damn, you did it." The old office colleagues approached, led by Jalbert, unsteady in polished shoes. "I was wrong, Sifo," he admitted, voice low. "Your work, this," his hand waved to the emptying auditorium. For a moment, the weight of all those wasted years in cramped office light pressed between us. "You made something no one else could," he finished, and his eyes slipped away. As the crowd faded, old neighbors, MMAK Gattel, who once called my mother the woman with the lost son, embraced me, boasting to their friends. Back outside, the evening was tart with the scent of city rain, the neon haze painting wet brick gold. I stood with my family beneath a battered umbrella, my brother taking awkward, proud photos on his battered phone. My mother's laughter, rare, rich, scattered upward into the dusk. The journey had cost more than I meant to pay, years of doubt, hunger that stilled my hands, aching absences. But I had rebuilt myself from those pieces, a collage made of longing and the discipline of daily work. In telling my city's story, I had finally earned back my place in it. The Market Theatre faded behind us, its murals painted with lions and broken jazz horns. I took my family home that night, past the city's cracked heart, down streets glowing and scarred, and for the first time in years I saw Johannesburg not just as a city of struggle, but as a place filled with hope, reconstructed, risked, redeemed.